I'm Miranda Antoinette Trout, and I play Margot Crawford in Bright Star.
I'm Mike Spee, and I play Billy Kane in Bright Star here at Taproot Theatre, and you're watching Eclectic Arts.
All right, so we're here in Seattle, Washington at the Taproot Theatre, and we're here with Mike, who is a part of the cast of Bright Star, the show that just got extended for an additional week into August because it's doing so well and the demand is there. So Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. And for a lot of people out there that watch the videos that I do, especially of Taproot's actors, they don't know what goes into a production, the rehearsals, the tech week, all those kind of things. So for this show in particular and for your role, what kind of things can you mention that went into it from the beginning to where you're at now?
Yeah, sure. So here at Taproot, we rehearse 5 days a week, mostly in the evenings. Then it gets a little longer as you get closer. But there's a lot of prep on your own time as well. For this particular one, I was playing violin in addition to playing this character. So I was working on music, I was working on lines, I was working on the songs. Kind of anytime I had time in the car, or at home, wherever it was. Just sort of, preparing as much as possible ahead of time, and then as you go in the rehearsals, kind of finding new things to work on as you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are there any parts of your character that resonated with you as you were reading through the script?
Yeah. So I've played a lot of children over the last 8 years in the Seattle theater scene, so it was really nice to get to play someone who's still not my age, but in his young 20s at least, someone I can relate to a little bit more than maybe the 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds that I've been playing previously. So it was really fun to find some of that to identify with. He's a young kid just back from the war, trying to figure out what's going on in his life. I don't have that particular experience, but coming back from various experiences and trying to figure out kind of what that next step is in life is something that we've all obviously encountered. So it was really fun to get to identify with the character and find some of those things in there.
Okay, and now that the show's been going for a few weeks now, you're kind of into the well-oiled machine part of it, I would think. Did anything?
Well enough, yeah.
Does anything stand out? Maybe something that funny that happened in one performance, or something that you're like, oh, how do we get past that?
Yeah. Opening night, my big song, which is just right towards the beginning of the show, the title song, Bright Star, and I'm singing it, and just kind of, maybe one thing happened slightly differently, and I realized all of a sudden that I wasn't singing. I just was kind of listening to what was going on around me. It wasn't a big deal because everyone else on stage was singing at that point in the song, so it wasn't like I went up on my lines or something. I was just like, I didn't sing with them. That sounded great. Let's finish the song. Things happen. Your brain just does silly little things, and something is slightly different, and it just takes you somewhere else. So.
Wow.
That was a funny one. Yeah.
Okay. Makes me wish I had been here opening night.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
But you mentioned that your character plays violin in the production, and so what kind of music background do you have?
Yeah, so music has always been part of my life. I've been singing as long as I can remember, and started taking violin lessons from my mom when I was, 6 maybe, I think. And then took from another professional violinist after that, and kind of did violin all the way up until high school. But I also played some clarinet, and I sung my whole life, and kind of continued in various things. Lost interest in violin for a while, focused more on choral and vocal stuff, and then sort of just picked up my violin a little bit here and there. And then it wasn't until a show at Seattle Children's Theatre, 5 years ago now, 6 years ago, called Dick Whittington, and they wanted some people to play instruments, and so I auditioned with my violin, which I hadn't really played in a long time, and ended up playing in that, and since then I've gotten to play it in 4 or 5 other shows. So it's just a really fun thing that I get to pick up and play a little bit, and this show is actually probably the most I've played it in any show. I get to play it in, I think, 7 songs in this one. So it's a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who's trying to get into the local theater scene here in Seattle?
Totally. There are a lot of different ways to get involved with different theaters. If you're looking for auditioning, there's a lot of general auditions that you're able to just look up a particular theater on their website or something, find out how to do a general audition for their season, and then they start to call you in for specific shows from there. There's also the generals through TPS, Theater Puget Sound. But there's a lot of opportunities in Seattle, and it's not something that I realized. I grew up down in Olympia. I didn't know about most of the theaters in Seattle until I moved here. But there's a lot of really small theaters that are doing really cool stuff, kind of some mid-range ones, and then larger ones as well. And so there's lots of different ways to get plugged into that scene and to start getting to meet people and know people, and that's kind of just, it snowballs from there.
Okay. One thing that I was kind of surprised to learn just about some of the theater productions in general, not just here at Taproot, was that during the intermission, a lot of times the actors are kind of goofing around, or they have their own kind of weird thing that they do. What do you do?
No, we never goof around. It's very serious, very very strict backstage. No, what do I do? Well, sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, what do you tend to do during intermission during the show for yourself?
Sure, yeah. Intermission from this show, head down to the dressing room. I have to change costume at intermission, so I do that. We're all just kind of down there chatting, joking, grab a snack, grab a drink, sit on the couch. I don't have to be in the show right at the top of Act 2, so everyone else kind of heads off, and I stretch out on the couch and try not to fall asleep or anything like that. Just sort of. I find it's really helpful for a lot of the shows, especially one where there's some emotional scenes and other stuff, to sort of joke around and just sort of come out of it when you come off stage, and be yourself.
Okay, and is it kind of the same thing when you have a 2-show day in between the 2 shows, that you're just doing more of what you just described?
Some of that. Typically on a 2-show day, I find I'm also doing work for my other job between shows, just because time is there, and I'm at the theater anyways, and so I might as well do some work. I always try to make the most of my time. I also have a almost 3-year-old at home, so I never know what my time at home is going to be like exactly. So I just try to find little extra times to get some work done. Yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe shower, because I haven't had time to shower at home.
Sure, your castmates appreciate that.
Yes, it's very very important.
Lastly, what do you have anything that you want to plug that's coming up, or something that you have your own interest in, maybe seeing a production somewhere else in town that's going to be opening in September, October? Or?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just excited to see what's coming up. I have some friends and stuff that I'm excited to see. I was involved in a show that's going to be at the 5th this fall, Austin's Pride. I've done some readings and stuff with that. I'm excited to see that one. I don't know. Just kind of see. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today, and I'm
Absolutely.
looking forward to seeing the show. And again, for those that are watching this, you got a few weeks left to catch one of the performances before it goes away. And
Right.
if you miss out, you really are missing out. So make sure that you come out here to the Taproot Theatre and check out Bright Star.
Totally.
Okay, so we're here in Seattle, Washington at the Taproot Theatre, continuing our interviews with the cast from Bright Star. And Miranda, how are you doing today?
Great.
Okay.
Had a long day, but it was good.
Okay. So I saw the production a few weeks ago, and I thought it was just amazing. In particular, your voice was just stellar.
Thank you.
Yeah, it really stood out to me. And so I'd like to kind of find out, for those that haven't seen Bright Star yet, can you talk a little bit about your character within the production?
Yes.
And then also maybe some of the steps it took for you to get ready and prepared to be the character that you are.
Totally. So in Bright Star, there's kind of 2 different storylines. Basically, there's one that happens in the 40s and one that happens in the 20s when there's a character from the 40s who we've met, Alice, and we get to see some of her past. And Margot is mainly in the 40s line. She is the childhood friend of Billy Kane, who's a young aspiring writer, and he kind of goes off to Asheville where he meets Alice, who's an editor, and he's following his dreams out there, and Margot kind of gets left behind because he is her dream and always has been. But it will be a happy ending for them both, I promise. So yeah, she's in the 40s. She runs a bookstore, which I think is super awesome. She is an independent woman in the 40s who runs her own business, which makes me really happy. And as far as preparation goes for this show, it was really interesting for me to sing this style of music because it's not a style I had ever done before. I'm classically trained, like I'm an opera singer is where I came from, and then into musical theater, and now I guess bluegrass can kind of be my thing too.
Okay, I was actually going to ask you about your singing background and your music background, but you already told us about that. No, that's awesome. You're already ahead of the game. And so can you talk a little bit about your background as an actress, not just here with Bright Star, but just in general? So like, what got you started, and what are some of the other roles or productions that you have fond memories of?
Ooh. Well, I started as a singer. I've always been a singer since I was really, really little. And then one year when I was about 12, my parents went, why don't you try to be in a musical? Because Seattle Children's Theatre did musical productions in their summer season for students to do. And so that's where I started. Footloose was my first musical. I had no idea what I was doing. I sang Think of Me from Phantom of the Opera as my audition song because I had no idea what I was doing at the time. But they let me in, and I just loved it and went on from there. And I actually went on to work at Seattle Children's Theatre twice. I did Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe there, which was amazing, and I just finished a 5-month run of Anne Frank with them, which was a co-production. So those were two shows I really liked. I also really loved Goblin Market, which was based on the Christina Rossetti poem. And I love that piece.
Okay, and you mentioned that you're classically trained as a vocalist.
Yes.
And so have you had a chance to perform straight opera anywhere at any point, or?
Kind of. I sing at a restaurant downtown sometimes when I have the time. It's called Pasta Fresca, and I sing there sometimes. And I do, some like solo opera things here and there, but I just haven't had the time really to do a full production because musical theater is my focus. That's just kind of the path I went down, and it's really surprisingly hard to do both. When people hear you're in musical theater, like the opera casting people, they don't necessarily want to see you, which is a shame.
Oh, that's interesting. I had a chance to talk with Megan Pacherno, who has an opera background, and she was seeing Christine Daae's part in Love Never Dies and now doing Phantom.
I love that show.
And she was kind of talking about that. It was hard for her coming from the opera world, going into the musical theater world. It's kind of like they kind of stay in their own lane a bit.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she had said as well.
And there was a song that I recently listened to. I forget who sang it off the top of my head, but it was called They Won't Let You in the Opera. And it's a lady singing country. And she's like, this is why they won't let you into the opera. And then she sings opera, and that's kind of what it's about. And it just really struck me, and it was really wonderful, especially doing this show right now. Think of how I do this show, and then some nights I also go off and I sing opera. It was really cool.
Awesome. One thing I was curious about that as I've been talking to other theater actors, not just Taproot, but just around town, that surprised me is a lot of times that during intermission, the actors are doing whatever it takes to relax. Sometimes people have certain things, they put their earbuds in, they're kind of zoned out, and other ones are kind of goofing around and joking around. Do you have anything that you tend to do during the intermissions for the shows you've been a part of, including this one?
Usually I'm just changing my clothes and, yeah, goofing around. Usually I just change my clothes, goof around. If I need some, like a snack or water, we use the restroom, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I just kind of hang out.
Okay, all right. And one thing for myself, when I saw this, there's so many different, I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but so many different cues going on in terms of like when someone's got to walk off the stage and when someone's got to be harmonizing, and so there's so many different things with this cast. Is that something that comes from the director, or how does that kind of come to be for someone like me that doesn't understand what it takes to, you know, think of those things?
Oh man, there's a lot. Because some of it is written in the script that'll say, you know, someone exits or here's where the music starts. But even that we can kind of take our own liberties with. And a big change, I guess, that we made for this particular production versus maybe the Broadway production or another production you might see in a much bigger space is that we are lucky enough to have some of the actors on the stage also playing in the band. And I think that's actually where most of the kind of choreography had to go into, of thinking, okay, well, if so-and-so is playing in the band, but they need to go on for the next scene, when can they change their clothes? And sometimes that had to be different. And that was something we had to do all on our own, and that Karen, our director, and Katie, our choreographer, and the actors themselves and the dressers really had to kind of work out, even all the way up until through tech, because it was just a huge process, and there isn't like a set system for that kind of thing, because it's kind of a very different thing that we did.
Okay. All right. And something else I'd like to ask is that for the budding young actor and actresses that are out there in the Seattle area, what kind of advice would you give to them to kind of get you know, the wheels in motion to get into the scene around here?
In motion. Well, I was fortunate enough to go to Cornish to go here, so I made a lot of connections that way. So even if you're not going to like a college or university program here in the city, taking other classes is super helpful. You start to know people. There are a lot of resources. There's like Freehold Theater. There's different workshops that happen, master classes that come through. I mean, those might not be so great for making connections here, but taking people's classes and workshops here in Seattle will definitely help you meet people and make connections. I would always recommend going to generals, like as many generals as you can possibly find. TPS is a great resource for that. Yeah, and just getting out there, doing the thing as much as you can, even if you're starting really small, even with like little festivals of short plays or whatever it is you can do. You just gotta start somewhere, and going to shows too.
Okay, and the very last thing is, do you have anything that you'd like to promote that's coming up for yourself, or something you're looking forward to that maybe a friend's a part of, to round out this interview?
Yeah. Well, I have some things that are like in the works that haven't quite started yet, so I guess we're gonna have to be quiet on those ones. But I'm a Dickens caroler, and I sing with them every year. This is gonna be my 8th season, I believe. And yeah, that's something I really love, and I'm looking forward to in the next year. I'm also really looking forward to kind of completely different designing. I'm a designer, and I'm showing 6 looks at New York Fashion Week next September. So that's a big project for the whole year that I'm excited for.
Oh wow, congratulations with that.
Thanks. I'm kind of nervous and really excited as well.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yeah.
And everyone come out to the Taproot Theatre to see Bright Star, as it's been extended for an additional week into August. You will not regret it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.